Hi there, I'm Gideon Rose, and welcome to another edition of Foreign Affairs Focus. We're here today with Samuel Palmisano, the former chairman, president, and chief executive officer of IBM, and the co-chair of a wonderful new CFR report called Defending an Open, Global, Secure, and Resilient Internet. Sam, you wrote a wonderful foreign affairs article a while back about a globally integrated enterprise and the need for corporations to essentially think of themselves and operate as global enterprises. The internet makes that kind of activity possible, ever more so than before, but it also comes with great dangers, including crime and espionage and all sorts of malware and so forth. So how does the globally integrated enterprise deal with the challenges of the internet today?
Well, I think it's a great question, Gideon, and if you think about the globally integrated enterprise was enabled by two factors. One was technology, the internet, and other technologies as well, but the internet predominantly. The other was that more and more countries of the world were now engaging in the global economy. So regardless of their governments or the structure of their governments or political ideology, they were now going to engage in the global economy. And we know about the BRICS, but it's much more than just the BRICS. So those two factors were converging. And so the technology was the enabler for them to engage in this world differently. As the corporation would view it, the way you would view the opportunity is that you could now participate and you could tap into the economic growth of those countries and the skill pools representing the populations of those countries through this interconnected mechanism called the internet, right, through how you did your work. And I argued in the piece that the very structure of a corporation would change because of those two factors. And in fact, if anything, it's accelerated since we wrote the piece.
How do these issues look, cybersecurity, cybercrime, right, the challenges of the internet, look differently from the corporate perspective as opposed to the Washington policymaker or the ordinary user perspective?
I think if you look at it from the corporate point of view, it is different because you're looking at it from a disruption of service. You see a lot of that occurring today in the financial services organization or in the communications companies where people are trying to disrupt their ability to do banking on the internet, or to even do your tweeting or social media within your smartphones, within the communications fabrics that exist in the world. The other piece on the corporate side of it, I mean, that disrupts your ability to serve your clients, which you don't like, but more importantly, what you really don't like is when they steal your information. That could be a bank credit card information, and they use that for fraud reasons, to withdraw money from the ATMs. In the IBM example, it could be your intellectual property. The stuff you've invented and created, which you have digitized internally, they will try to get access to and then use to commercialize their own technologies or their own products. So in from the corporate lens, it's more of an economic impact and your ability to serve your customers and protect your inventions over time.
Is there a special role that the private sector and major corporations have to play in dealing with these challenges, or is it something that government can and should be left to deal with on its own?
No, we argue in the report that really it's a multi-stakeholder approach that's going to solve the problem. And the reason why we make the argument for the multi-stakeholder approach, it starts with the internet. I mean, the internet is really a multi-stakeholder model. There is no controlling body over the internet. It is a happenstance of history that it happens to be this one organization as part of the Chamber of Commerce, the Commerce Department in the United States. But that's just because it started here. But it's run by this International Standards Bureau. I'm avoiding all the acronyms, but it kind of coexists with the engineering discipline, and that's what it is. It's open, people cooperate, standards emerge, and then that's why it's been so successful. So to really address a lot of these concerns, you need both the private sector, you need the universities, the academic organizations of the world, the research organizations, and you need governments all to come together and comply. And it's really necessary that they work together to keep the internet open and free. And yeah, there are issues associated with it, which we need to protect society from those kinds of problems that occur. But we really are all better off if we can keep the internet open and free as we go forward into the future.
When we're thinking about cybersecurity, do we have to, is the real worry some kind of devastating bolt from the blue attack that cripples everything, or the sort of death from a thousand cuts of small little things?
I think it's death from a thousand cuts, and that's where the task force came out as well. I mean, people talk about this cyber Pearl Harbor kind of an event. Well, I mean, that's hard to do. I mean, it's hard technically to do. You need a nation with a lot of resources to do it. Odds are, the other countries are going to realize what's going on because it's part of a bigger issue. It's not just a cyber attack of a Pearl Harbor. But what you could have is a death by a thousand attacks. You could disable service in parts of the world. You could, like they do today, operators, whomever they happen to be, will try to get into the financial information, take the money, disrupt the banking system, take down the exchanges of the world, collapse the currency markets, collapse the world economy, take IBM's intellectual property, or all companies' intellectual property, take the weapons systems from the aerospace companies, et cetera, et cetera. So that will be, and there's lots of them occurring all the time. So there's thousands of them around the world that happen every day. That is really the task force conclusion, the bigger threat to this than some big, nuclear Hiroshima, that kind of an event.
The U.S. and Chinese governments have just agreed to start direct talks about cybersecurity issues and to deal with the problem together, supposedly on an ongoing basis. Right. Do you think that actually will get anywhere in dealing with the problems that exist?
Well, I think we have to. I mean, at the end of the day, the two largest economies are going to have to come together and collaborate. And I really do believe that it's a point in time in history where it'll be in everyone's self-interest for them to do that. And when it's in their self-interest, they will. I make that argument based on history, so I don't make the argument on just my own personal opinion. IBM is 102 years old now, and we've had people try to steal our intellectual property over the past 100 years.
In lots of colorful ways?
Lots of colorful ways. Lots of countries, lots of cultures. The Japanese, the Koreans, Europeans, et cetera, et cetera. So it wasn't limited just to one rogue nation, let's say. And what happened over time in all those circumstances, the way it was solved, because everybody's self-interests were in solving the problem. We needed governments to collaborate with us to go put pressure on other governments to protect our. I mean, it was harder in those days. You actually had to steal the machines and steal the software, not just get on the internet and download it. So it was a lot harder in those days. But we needed their cooperation. At the same time, as those countries, their economies emerged and they engaged the world economy, they had to comply with standards. They had their own intellectual property to protect. They had trade agreements they wanted to participate in. So over time, as their economies matured, their interest and our interest, U.S. government, let's say U.S. technology companies, aligned. I really do believe that the same thing is going to happen today. The headlines today, because of the meetings of the heads of government that's going on this week, that'll get a lot of headline and a lot of news coverage. But I do believe in time that China will have to emerge off of their domestic production-driven economy called manufacturing and export into one that's globally engaged with the world, more intellectual property-based, innovation-based. They're going to have to get more productivity economically because they have all these people that they have to raise the standard of living for. Society will cause that to occur. At the same time, the U.S. interest is going to have a strong trading relationship with China being the second largest economy. So you can't grow the U.S. economy and take out the other huge economy and say, I'm going to get economic growth through exports. So that doesn't work. So the interest, I believe, will align, and as they do align, then a lot of these issues can come together. Now, I believe the way to solve this, which we also is in the task force report, is through a collaborative, multi-stakeholder model. Why multi-stakeholder? Everybody gets, okay, collaboration, I get collaboration. Why multi-stakeholder? Multi-stakeholder is important because you need pragmatic people in the discussion. Who's pragmatic? Business. At the end of the day, business people, Chinese business people and American business people, their interests are aligned. They need the internet. They need to conduct business on a global basis. These issues, they don't want anybody stealing their stuff, so therefore they're not going to steal your stuff, right? So they're going to come together and work together because that's what's required for them. And business is ultimately pragmatic. Business is not ideological. So a lot of debates that go on government to government, you need a multi-stakeholder approach so that you can get more pragmatism, more day-to-day input into that dialogue.
From your lips to God's ears, as my Bubba used to say. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Sam Palmisano, thank all of you. See you on the next Foreign Affairs Focus.